Hi everybody, it's me again, Jack Wallen, and I'm here once again to talk to you about Linux. That's right, it's Linux 101. I can count, yeah, Linux 101. Episode, I don't know. Maybe I can't count, who knows. Anyway, I want to preface this by saying that I know this might come off as a little bit ranty, but I don't intend it to be. Okay? Because I know that when Linux fans start talking about other operating systems, they can tend to get a little bit standoffish, a little bit, my operating system's better than yours, so blah, 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 blah. Look, the truth of the matter is, you use the tool that you can use to get the job done. If it's Linux, awesome. If it's Windows, well, I'm sorry about your luck, but you do what you got to do. And I do use Mac OS. I use it for video editing because Linux and video editing is not very good. When I first started doing videos long ago, I used a tool called OpenShot, and it was not good. It was fine for making very amateur videos. And it served its purpose. It taught me how to edit videos, and that was great. Bravo. But when all of a sudden I started needing things to look a little bit more professional, OpenShot didn't work. And I tried DaVinci Resolve on Linux, but unless you have an NVIDIA card, it ain't gonna work. I mean, I've got, my desktop is a System 76 Thelio with an AMD processor and an AMD GPU. And DaVinci Resolve says, what? Huh? I don't know how to deal with this. Sorry about your luck, but okay. So I use DaVinci Resolve on Mac OS and it works great for the most part. And that's kind of where I want to go with this. It's a good launching point. Everybody always seems to think that Mac OS is the top tier operating system, that it can do no wrong, but it can, and it does. I have had problems with Mac OS. Now, I'm fortunate that I know how to resolve those problems, but there are instances where I think if this were Linux, I could fix this problem like that. But because it's Mac OS, I'm going to have to reboot. And I'm going to have to hope that the reboot fixes the problem. Just the other day, I had an issue with a drive. Mac OS couldn't recognize it. I'm like, you've been recognizing this drive for weeks, months, years, but now you can't? What's the deal? Mac OS says, I don't know. I guess it just insulted me and I didn't want to be a part of its existence anymore. Okay, let's get to the topic. I'm sorry I blathered. Okay, let me show you something. This right here. Oh look, my fingernails match. Whee! This is my 2017 MacBook Pro. You see this little dongle? See that right there? It's a wireless dongle. You're probably wondering, why is that on there? Doesn't Mac OS, doesn't that MacBook Pro have wireless capability inside? Yes, it does when it's running Mac OS. Okay, this MacBook Pro became useless. How did it become useless? I upgraded Mac OS until it couldn't upgrade anymore. And then all of a sudden the battery was lasting about 10 minutes, 10, 20 minutes, and everything was slow. Like, so slow, I couldn't use it anymore. I couldn't even open the terminal app without having to look at my watch and go, okay, any minute now. Are you there? No? Okay. I'll give you 5 more minutes. Nope. Okay. Close the lid. I'm done with you. Can't work with you. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just do a factory restore and start back at square one with Mac OS. But no, because I had upgraded all the way as far as it could go, all of a sudden Mac OS said, I don't support a factory reset. Really? Really? Seriously, Mac OS? You can't reset? No matter what I tried, I could not get it to reset. So I set this MacBook aside because I had bought it. I had purchased another MacBook Pro. I like Mac hardware. I have yet to find a laptop where the hardware exceeded the MacBook Pro. But I set this aside and it just started collecting dust. It was worthless. So this last weekend, we got a ton of snow. Not like New York, Connecticut kind of snow, but we got about 12 inches of snow. I thought, well, I've got some spare time on my hands. What am I going to do? Oh, I know. I'll install Linux on this baby. Let's make it work. So I burned Ubuntu 24.04 to a USB drive with, I used Popsicle, which is Pop OS's USB utility. And I inserted the USB drive here, started the computer while holding the command button down. And when it came to the boot menu, I connected it to my wireless network, thinking, awesome, it's going to work. And then I selected the USB drive, booted into Ubuntu. I said, yay, I can install this. Let's do it. So I installed it. And it worked. The installation worked as usual until it came to the wireless. And guess what? Wireless wouldn't connect. I saw all the networks. Saw every one of them. Saw my neighbor's networks. Probably saw networks in the next state. Couldn't connect to them. Not at all. Even with the correct password, could not connect with them. So I had an RJ45 to USB-C adapter, plugged it in, got on the network, finished the installation, upgraded everything. And I thought, well, okay, so all I have to do is get the Broadcom drivers and blah, blah, blah. Tried that. No dice. So it turns out that not every MacBook Pro is the same. There are some versions of these that simply wireless just won't work with Linux. And I think part of the problem is that it will only work with 5 gigahertz networks and not 2.5 or 2.4 gigahertz networks. So I thought, well, okay, I'm just going to have to leave the USB dongle on there, this big old thing sticking out, and use it that way. And then the first thing I noticed was that it ran like a champ. It ran better than this little laptop ever did. Applications opened really quickly. There was no problems at all with that. I could install things quickly. Everything was good. But, gosh, there's always a but. The touch bar wouldn't work. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. Touch bar will not work. Sound won't work. I haven't really put much effort into sound yet. The display looks great. Suspend, nah, not so much. So this is a project, and I'm gonna keep working on it. I'm gonna try very hard to get everything working on this MacBook. But I'm also probably going to, because I have to use a dongle, I installed Ubuntu because I thought, well, from everything I've read, I won't have to, everything will work. Well, that's not the case. So I'm probably going to install Rhino Linux on this to see, because I love the way that looks. I'll see how that works on this. And I'll report back to you how it does. But here's the thing, and this is really what I want to talk about. I remember back in the day, back in the old days, back in the early 2000s, late 1990s and early 2000s, that whenever I would try to find a laptop that supported Linux, I knew that it was going to be a chore. And no matter what I did, there was always something that didn't work. It was either sound, display, wireless, you name it, something didn't work. And then the years passed and the years passed, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I can install this on an Intel laptop most often, and it mostly works. Yes, there are instances where an Intel-based laptop might have a Broadcom chip in it, but even then, because it's an Intel PC laptop, I could mostly make it work. But with Apple, it should just work. Mac OS has a lot of Linux in it. And I get it. I know Apple wants to, they want to build a garden wall around everything they make. And they want everything to be sandboxed such that you cannot monkey with their hardware. And I get that. But here's the thing. If you're only going to support a piece of hardware for a certain period of time, and if your OS will eventually, or could likely at some point, brick the hardware, You should make it possible for people to do whatever they want with those laptops when that time comes. If I have a 2017 MacBook Pro and Mac OS just will not work anymore, you should make it possible for me, the person that has purchased this laptop, to install whatever operating system I want on it. It should be that simple. And I know that it's not just on Apple. It's Broadcom, there's other people involved. But here's where I get kind of miffed about this. You and I both know that those companies depend on Linux and open source software. They depend on it. Without open source software, those companies wouldn't be where they are now. That being the case, those companies should understand that and be willing to play nicely. Because planned obsolescence is simply wrong. It costs people money that may or may not have it. It lands a lot of hardware into landfills where they don't belong. And this is where it gets really, really frustrating. One of the things that Linux is superior to all other operating systems is the ability to give new life to old hardware. I can take an old computer, like early 2000s computer, and I can find a Linux distribution, install it, and it will work flawlessly on it. And it will feel like it's a brand new computer. In other words, I don't have to buy another computer. And that's really crucial right now, because there are a lot of people across this wonderful planet that we live on who are facing down the fact that their Windows 10 computer is not going to work anymore. It's not going to be supported by Microsoft unless they pay for it. They pay a premium to get extended support for Windows 10. And a lot of those computers don't support Windows 11. And I have been telling people all the time lately, if you want to keep those computers, install Linux on them. Because Linux will give them new life. And all of a sudden, you'll have an operating system on that computer and you can use it for another 5 or 10 years. You don't have to buy a new computer. But with this baby, that's not necessarily the case. Now, I can use it. I can use it with the dongle. I can go without the touch bar, even though it's frustrating. I can go without sound, because that's not what I'm using it for. Mostly I would just use it for writing. But it shouldn't be that way. It should support Linux. Especially given I can log into Mac OS on my other MacBook or my iMac. I can open up a terminal and I can run a bunch of Linux commands. Linux commands on Mac OS. And yet, Mac OS or MacBook Pros won't support Linux with ease. No one, well, that's not true. There are people that enjoy trying to make things work. I actually enjoy it. I enjoy trying to get this baby to work flawlessly on Linux, and I will keep trying. But there are people, a lot of people, most people, the majority of people do not want to have to spend that extra time trying to get an operating system working on a computer. It should just work. Same thing with printers, same thing with scanners, same thing with just about everything. We've had enough. If you ask any old school Linux user about their experience, maybe one of the first things they will say is, yeah, I remember the days of Win modems. I remember struggling to get those to work. And that was back in a time when Microsoft was vehemently against Linux. Why? Because they knew that Linux was superior. And they were afraid, deathly afraid, that if people learned that Linux was superior, they would use it. And all of a sudden their cash cow would no longer be a cash cow. Well, that's not the case anymore. And Microsoft even, for the most part, plays well with open source. We think. We think. But Apple, come on. Seriously, Apple. Just, it's not that hard. Broadcom, come on. I own this. This is mine. I own it. I should be able to do whatever I want with it. If I wanted to install Amiga on it, or Warp, I should be able to do it. I would never do that, but I should be able to do it. And trust me, I've spent hours trying to get that Broadcom Wi-Fi chip to work. And I'll probably spend hours again doing it. But I'm going to install Rhino Linux on it, like I said. And I don't have high expectations that there's any chance in hell that the wireless will work on Rhino Linux either. And that's okay, because like I said, I've got the dongle. But come on. Yes, I could purchase a laptop from System 76 or Tuxedo Computers or any given company that sells laptops with Linux pre-installed. But like I said, these laptops are premium. And I've yet to find a better laptop hardware-wise. They last. This is not exactly a good example of them lasting, but the displays are wonderful. The trackpads are great. With the exception of this particular model, the keyboards are pretty good. Now, imagine how well this would be if Linux just worked on it. It'd be brilliant. I'd install Linux on every MacBook I had. But no. Apple decides that, well, we don't want that. We want you using Mac OS because we can't support Linux. Well, this baby's beyond your support. You don't support this anyway. You're not going to help me with this. Apple care, schmapple care. And you know, I just reviewed a Tuxedo laptop and it was wonderful. Display's great, performs flawlessly. I could buy a laptop from Tuxedo Computers, and I may do that. I may do that when I decide that my MacBook M1 just isn't cutting it anymore. I may decide to just go, yeah, I've had enough of this. But I know that I at least have to have a Mac OS computer around for video editing. So anyway, I hope this didn't come off as too ranty, because I wasn't angry about it. I knew going into it that I was going to have problems and it wasn't just going to be smooth sailing. But my curiosity got the best of me, and I thought, why am I bothering leaving this laptop collecting dust? Why don't I do something with it? At least it's usable. So, have you ever had any experience similar to this? Have you ever found a piece of hardware that you wanted or needed to work with Linux, but no matter what you did, it just wouldn't happen? And if so, what was that piece of hardware? printers don't count because printers suck. I used to work in, I had about a 7-year period where I worked with a managed support service. Worst 7 years of my life. And probably 80% of what I did was with printers. Because, like I said, printers suck. Printers are effectively someone in a printer manufacturer squatted on a conveyor belt, dumped a bunch of poo on the conveyor belt, shaped it into the form of a printer, and said, this is a printer. This is what printers are. They're just rectangles of poo. Because, you know, you hit print and it may work, it may not work. If the printer's shared on a network, 60-40 that it won't work. Technology is supposed to make our lives easier. Anyway, that's all I got. Next time, I promise I'll get back on track. I'm going to probably talk about Arch Linux. I know that excites some of you because Arch Linux rocks. Once you get past the installation. But we'll probably, never mind. I'm not going to go into it because another day. Anyway, thank you so very much for spending a little bit of your time with me. I know it's precious, and you probably got a lot better things to do than look at my weird old face and listen to me blather on. But I appreciate the fact that you are willing to be here with me more than you know. And I hope that you and everyone you know have a wonderful, wonderful day. Go Linux.